Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Choose the Right E-Commerce Platform for Your Business. I'm Sherry Powell, and I'm the Marketing Director here at Kissinger Associates. I'm joined today by Calvin Morrison. He's our Operations Manager for ERP and Integrations, as well as Nick Pierulli, who is a full-stack developer with Kissinger in our integrations team. So we're really happy that you're here today. Thanks for joining us. Just a couple of things I want to let you know that all of the attendee microphones are currently muted. If you would like to ask a question, and we hope that you do, please use the Q&A controls in your webinar controls in the bottom, probably in the bottom of your screen. And we'll also be at the end, if you stick around, we'll have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll turn on everyone's mics for that so we can get a little more of an interactive discussion going. So our focus today is on helping you understand the considerations and all of the factors that are involved in trying to evaluate e-commerce platforms. And there are quite a few. So what we want to try to do over the next 45 minutes is to do our best to explore those critical factors and consider how you can work through analyzing those and comparing the different platforms that you can make a selection in an informed way. Before we dive into all of that content, I'd just like to take a moment and tell you a little bit about who we are at Kissinger Associates. So we've been in business for 40 years, since 1985. So we're celebrating that this year. And we've been helping companies through our history as a systems integrator, also as a provider of accounting software, also known as ERP systems and services. So we've been exposed to lots and lots of companies doing business in all kinds of ways. We have developed quite a depth of experience and expertise in not only the technology solutions that we offer, of course, but also just how business works, workflows, processes. We've seen a lot. We kind of know what works and what doesn't work, and we're able to provide a lot of guidance to our clients in those ways because of just the length of time and the level of experience that we have in working with so many different businesses. So we've really specialized over time in some areas around e-commerce, initially in EDI, integrated EDI solutions, electronic data interchange, kind of the beginning of e-commerce. And back in the 90s, we started working with EDI and still do that today. And then, of course, more recently with e-commerce platform integrations, implementations. So now at this point, we do all of that. And what it all comes down to, though, for us, and I think what we're most proud of as a company throughout our history is our relationships. We have client relationships that have lasted for decades, and working through channel partners, business partners. I think we really work hard to take good care of those clients and to make sure that we're focused always on customer success, because that's what's most important for us, is making sure that the technology solutions that we're recommending and providing are really solving important problems for our customers and giving them the benefits that they're needing in order to keep moving their business forward. So that takes a lot of that's our focus, and we really pride ourselves on that and appreciate the trust that our customers and partners place in us. We couldn't do it without that trust. So, all right, thank you. I wanted to just share a little about the company, and I think now we're ready to get into the meat of things. So I'm going to pass things to Calvin to go ahead and get us started.
Awesome. Thanks, Sherry. Hi, everybody. I am Calvin Morrison. I'm the operations manager for ERP and integrations at Kissinger. I joined the company about 4 years ago and have been mostly focused on e-commerce and EDI. That's where my team works most. Today, we're going to run the gamut. We're going to talk about a lot of different things to compare between e-commerce systems. You can trust us because we've seen a lot of these. It's one of the things I love about being a consultant is we work with so many different clients, and someone tries this, someone tries that. So we've had a lot of experience with what's worked well, what hasn't worked, and I think we're here to kind of share those nuggets with you. So at a high level, we'll talk features, we'll talk costs. At the end, I've got more factors to compare. This is sort of like the grab bag of extra things. And then after that, we'll do some Q&A. I'm going to answer questions. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can put it in the Q&A in Zoom, and I'll try to answer it if it's kind of pertinent to that slide, or maybe we'll hang on to the end. And I think we've also got some interactive questions we're going to do through the webinar. And I think that's what we're going to start with next. We've got a quick poll that Sherry's going to do. Where are you at now? So I want us to kind of all close our eyes, think about it. If you're a client, if you're an end user of an e-commerce system, where are you guys right now? If you're a consultant or partner, do you have people using some of these? Are they doing this or that? As we go through this webinar, I want everyone to try and self-reflect. How does this information impact, what we're doing, or maybe how would it guide us in the future? So I think we'll do a couple more seconds, Sherry, and then we can close the poll, and then
Sounds good.
I'll try and and this information also helps me, guys. I'll try and tailor it, towards the answers we get. So,
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, and I'll share the results.
okay, so that's pretty overwhelming. Most people are still pretty new or not doing anything yet, but also some people who are on some of the platforms we'll talk about today, and then we've got people doing other stuff. So I'll try and I guess I'll try and cover one. So
All right.
So I touched on this, and I forgot I made a slide about it. But yeah, one of the things I love about consulting is we do all these integrations, so we sort of see what works, what doesn't. We've had clients pick the wrong platform and get a year or two down the road and have to back all the way up, start over, or try and pivot. We have clients who are really succeeding with the choices they've made, or the ones we've helped guide them to. And so I think we're in a very good position to, analyze workflows, talk about what we see is working, kind of trends we're seeing in the industry. And so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so, why does this matter? Isn't just an e-commerce platform just my website? Who cares about all this stuff? Well, it's pretty important because e-commerce has developed to the point where it's not just a website anymore. It is a whole platform, like choosing your ERP system or another system at your company. E-commerce has so many different tentacles that it gets into. There's shipping, there's taxes, there's inventory, warehouses, operational things, data syncing, product management. And so all these different pieces that it's playing into these days impacts, right, what you're going to pick. There's budget considerations. Do you need a Cadillac? Can you start out with something more basic? How's the system going to work? Day to day, who's working in the system? Do they know how to do it? Is it easy? Is it hard? Um, how does it work for the customer, or how is the customer using the product? Is it going to be sort of a basic retail site? Something maybe like fashion. They get on, they order a t-shirt and it comes to their door. Is it something more complex? People doing, complex builds or kits, or maybe they're doing B2B ordering and they're using it to place orders, from their business to yours. So I think there's a lot of ways this will impact us. One of the things we're going to talk about through this is what channel you're selling in will impact what platform you really want. So we're going to do another quiz. Sorry, I'm doing lots of these, but I want to get some feedback. How are you guys, if you're selling right now, or how does your business operate? Are you selling B2B? Are you selling, you're a distributor, maybe you're selling to other businesses, or maybe you're a manufacturer and you're selling to distributors. Maybe you're kind of going like you're a distributor, you sell to customers. maybe online, Amazon today, or maybe on Walmart, or maybe you have brick and mortar. And then the last one here, direct to consumer. If you're a manufacturer and you're going straight to the consumer, you've got your own site, skipping the distributors. So if you answer these questions, I'm going to try and tailor this, but each one of these platforms, I think, has weaknesses and strengths when it comes to the different like sweet spot that they're in. So we'll give you a couple more seconds to answer, and then we'll see the results.
All right, yeah, we'll give a couple more seconds and then we'll close the poll and I will share the results.
Okay, we got a good smattering. Looks like mostly people are doing B2B or B2C. I got 2 people saying they're doing direct to consumer. Maybe we can roll that into the B2C bucket. And we'll try and talk to those 2 different options. Okay, so we're going to run through popular platforms. We're going to talk, and we're going to go through 5 of them. Shopify, BigCommerce. We're going to talk about Magento. We're going to talk about WooCommerce, and we'll also talk about NuOrder. So I think we're going to talk about some features, flexibility. I'm not going to go more than 5 minutes on each one. But really, again, think about how you guys do business. Is this platform flexible? Will it adapt to how you do business? If you're B2B, think about what features you might need. And so let's start out. We're going to start with Shopify. This is the one that's probably most popular. These are the guys who I see advertising online. They're doing television ads. Shopify's sort of core pitch is you can get online easy and start selling. And it's true. They have a sort of very good retail focused, get your website up and running type of deal. They do have fairly flexible things, but in some ways they're not so flexible. One of the benefits of Shopify and what we see a lot is there's a huge ecosystem. Lots of plugins, lots of partners, lots of Q&A online and information out there. So it's a good place to go if you're doing retail. And I think if you're doing retail in a simple way, think about before I said fashion. If you're selling basic products, Shopify is like primed for this. Some other things to think about. Shopify is a SaaS solution. You go on Shopify.com, you sign up, and you're going. You don't have to host anything. You don't have to host a website. They have some pretty good integrations. They can kind of pull data even from places like Amazon in. They also have a very robust API for integrating data back and forth. We're an integration firm. We see a lot of this. We need to send data or pull it, and they have a fairly good system. So BigCommerce is probably the second biggest player right now in the small to medium space. That's where I think Shopify and BigCommerce are best. Their pitch is we're really flexible. So with BigCommerce, you can sort of substitute out parts that are working or not working or what you want and kind of build a collage. Out of the gate, it's very good for retail. It's very good for B2B. We've got some clients who are very successful with their B2B implementations. They have good support for companies and catalogs and pricing and tiered discounts and things like that. And their integrations are maybe better than Shopify. They have a really strong ability to push and pull data out of it, and they're pretty agnostic and unopinionated, which allows you to kind of do what you need to do. So I think BigCommerce will be a good fit for someone who maybe has complex retail needs or maybe is doing B2B. But if we remember the poll we did earlier, some people are doing both. So if you're maybe going to have 2 sites, maybe a B2B and a retail, BigCommerce might be the place to kind of look. It is more complex than Shopify. It's harder to get off the ground. And I will say they're not as big. They don't have as big of a partner ecosystem as Shopify. But I think they're probably the second largest SaaS website provider now. And I guess the last thing I'd say is they're not for the real small upstart. I think they really shine in the, serious, we're really doing a lot of e-commerce online segment. So there's a lot of ability to kind of grow. So WooCommerce, if you've never heard of WooCommerce, maybe that is a blessing. WooCommerce came out of the WordPress school. WordPress is a kind of a easy to get your blog going online. A lot of companies, if you have sort of a basic website, your marketing person might have put it up with WordPress. It's very popular. And so someone sort of built this e-commerce engine on top. So it's free. That's a great thing. It's pretty flexible. It's got pretty good integrations because it's one of these open source products where your developer can kind of write code as needed. So the ability to do custom flows is very high. However, it's not the best engineered solution. And when I approach it as an SI, we run into headaches and things that you say, wow, this was really not thought through. But because of its flexibility, you can kind of get what you need done. Things that I would think about are it's not hosted. You have to host your own site. You have to manage updates, security updates. You kind of need a technical person. But through that all at zero cost and something that your marketing person might be familiar with, it's kind of a good place to start if you maybe already have a WordPress site or you have a marketing person who's familiar with that. Spinning up something new. I don't think WooCommerce shines in any area, but it's cheap and easy to get off the ground, and it can be scaled if needed. I would not recommend it for B2B though. It doesn't have the extensions that really are needed. So Magento, if you've been doing e-commerce for a long time, you may have said, whatever happened to Magento? Magento used to be, quite the powerhouse in the e-commerce space. They were acquired by Adobe some years ago and moved kind of upmarket. So medium and large business, they've kind of pushed out the smaller businesses. The cost of maintaining and upgrading Magento has risen over the years. So you might not hear about it much anymore, but Magento is still sort of a major player on those larger platforms where you need a lot of customization. Magento, again, it's that open source platform. Your developers can write whatever you need. If you have workflows that are different, or if you need to manage your own hosting, or you have certain regulatory constraints, think online alcohol sales, tobacco, marijuana, firearms, and you maybe can't comply with Shopify or something. Well, Magento self-hosted, you can do what you need, and you can build it out as needed. Uh, if it's alcohol, age verification pop-ups, that's something comes to mind. You can extend it. Magento is also very powerful for B2B. They have a good B2B tool set that comes with the Adobe Commerce plugins. Adobe acquired and added stuff on top. But I think it's really ideal for maybe large orgs, people who are doing a lot of e-commerce and want to continue investing year over year. There's a much higher base cost to having an e-commerce site running on Magento than I think any other platform. And so I think you're more likely to see it with maybe like a Nike.com type of website than you would for just a mid-level distributor. So another kind of honorable mention here is NuOrder. We did 2 NuOrder projects this year. They've been really enjoyable. NuOrder it's not quite e-commerce. Well, maybe it is. It's really a B2B focused e-commerce site where customers can purchase from you from your catalogs. That might sound obvious, but it's really from the ground up been built in that way. Maybe you've got price sheets or seasonal catalogs that we'll go with fashion. 2025 spring editions come out and you've got this listed and you need line sheets that you can allow your buyers to go on, purchase online. So it's pretty cool. You kind of have that virtual showroom feel you can put together, and it's very easy to integrate with your backend systems. They've sort of built it ground up, understanding that, hey, this is not just e-commerce, this is a B2B focused one. One thing we've been seeing, does anyone know AI? I mean, come on, this is like a total buzzword, right? In the e-commerce space, our current buzzword is B2B. Everybody says we do B2B. What we're finding is if they didn't start with B2B in mind, they're kind of trying to add it on top of retail. If you're thinking about doing B2B sales, I would highly recommend focusing on platforms that have very strong, we'll say native support for it. Shopify is one there. They're advertising B2B, but they're not really succeeding as much as I'd like, though they're investing a lot of money in it. because we all know how complex B2B business can be. Individual customers might have their own pricing, their own catalogs, shipping, payments, their invoicing. Maybe you're doing LTL. It's a lot more complex than just I need to order a t-shirt, right? So, NuOrder may be newer to the scene for us, but we're finding it to be good product fit for sort of companies who are selling that want their buyers to be able to kind of order online instead of, emailing in orders, when the busy season hits. All right, so take a deep breath. I put together a mega grid. I don't know, maybe you can look at this later when you get the video recording. I was trying to say, how do we pick and choose? I can tell you how we do it. We talk to clients and we say, all right, are you doing retail? Are you doing B2B? How are you using this? How many people inside the company do you think are going to be working on this? What's your appetite for cost? And we kind of work through these different things. I gave Shopify 5-star for ease of use. We have clients who do Shopify. They don't even have a web developer. They just get it up and running. How does Shopify do for B2B? We've had clients actually leave Shopify because it couldn't maintain, the feature set they needed for B2B. And then you look at BigCommerce and it's got a very good B2B fit. So, everyone can see the fun column in the right, the cost. I thought that was a good one too. WooCommerce tends to be the lowest out of the gate, the highest being Magento, but those are also the most flexible platforms. And then in the middle, we've got Shopify and BigCommerce, who are SaaS-based, kind of hosted solutions. There's kind of ongoing cost. They're falling in the middle, but they both have their own strengths. Like Shopify, I think, really plays well into retail. BigCommerce for us has done a lot better with B2B. Like, you're a distributor and you're selling to different stores and they need to place orders online and view their invoices. Maybe they negotiate pricing. It's been pretty successful in those projects that we've done. So I put cost, think about that cost column. Nothing is ever so simple, is it? Um, there's a lot of categories for cost. So if it's a SaaS platform, subscription costs, you're paying Shopify, BigCommerce, NuOrder, maybe monthly or annual fees to stay on. Um, if it's not hosted for you, you're probably paying your own hosting fees. You got your own web developer or web host that you've got to pay. Um, when you're talking about, Magento or Adobe Commerce or WooCommerce, it's self-hosted. You have to manage that, or someone's got to manage it. Another great one to talk about is transaction fees. This can end up being a very large part of the expense in e-commerce, depending on what payment provider you have or what payment gateway, what platform you're using. Those fees can add up. If we've got any accountants on the call, I know they want to go with the lowest transaction fees, but there's also risks. If you don't have a good payment provider that's reliable, it can cause operational nightmares or lost money or inability to collect. Um, so that can be an issue too. And then I sort of put some more down here, themes, if you're paying for someone to design and build out the front of your site, the look and feel, not the back end, not the parts that we care about, but what the customer sees. And then are you paying to get this thing off the ground? Do you have a project? Are you integrating it with your back end systems? Maybe you have a PIM, an ERP. Are you paying someone to do this by hand? An order comes into the website. Do you have to punch it into your back end ordering system manually? So there's sort of costs that maybe are not super obvious, from the jump. It's a website. How hard could it be? But I think you can really break it down into like, yeah, there are costs in different platforms and approaches are going to cost you maybe more or less of different ROIs. So I got another slide here. This is another mega chart. Don't read into it too deep, but we can talk about some of these cost structures, right? Like, and I did on the last slide, but Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Magento, NuOrder. Shopify starts out cheap, WooCommerce can be free, and then you see NuOrder, 7K a year, what the heck? Well, you're paying for their platform and you're getting that B2B feature set. A lot of these places, it starts at $29.99 a month. Once you add everything up, you're paying $2,000 a month. So we're going to talk about later, like scalability of a system, but I think you'll find that the costs just beyond subscription, like the build out of the site, we see in ranges working with marketing agencies, 20,000, 50,000, 10,000. 80,000, 150, all depending on the complexity. And I think I see costs go way up when people pick the wrong platform. They try to shoehorn in, oh, well, we really like this platform, and then they figure out their ops needs or their back end needs, and they're having to spend a lot more time trying to make it work in a system that wasn't built to handle it. So I think I don't know if I love this slide. It's got a lot on that, but suffice to say, picking the correct one will impact your total cost. So we're moving into I'm calling it the grab bag of other things to compare, stuff that we talk about, things that we talk about with clients when we're trying to guide them. So I alluded to this maybe just a minute ago, but well, now you've got a website, right? So you got a website and you built it out and you're live and you're getting orders and God willing, you'll make lots of money. So what are the ongoing costs, right? Like, do you have someone inside we used to call them webmasters. Now they maybe have different names. Who's watching the site? Who's keeping it up? Who's updating the product images? Does your art department know how to format stuff for the web? I don't know. What about the day-to-day things? Orders are coming in, inventory, is this getting out to the website? Is someone doing that every morning? Are you paying your customer support people to punch those orders in? So there's sort of like maintenance, ongoing cost. And for some, maybe higher, some maybe lower. Some have like platform costs, like Magento. I was saying you have to host it and run it. Some have much lower kind of costs. You don't have to think about security or compliance. Those kind of come built in. If you're a smaller team, you might say, well, maybe we can get something that's more managed for us. And if you're a larger, more complex company, you might say, let's go with something that's going to support our, more complex needs. So one thing to think about is not once you launch, that's the beginning. That's not the end of it. It all starts when you're live. Getting live after that, that's where everything happens. So let's go to the next slide. I think this is a good one because we're going to talk about, what's happening next. So you're live, you're doing your website online, you didn't get everything you wanted, and you want to add some more features now. We find there is a breaking point for most platforms. And people who pick the wrong platform up front, as the business grows or the complexity scales up, or you need crazy things because you do business in a different way that makes you stand out from your competitors. You've got 100 variants on one product with a configurable kit and you just can't get it to work right. You kind of hit a breaking point where your ability for your platform to keep up, your engine is undersized. You can't tow anything more. It causes serious problems. Your website's down, it's Black Friday, you're losing money by the second. Or we hit our limit on our number of portal customers and we can't onboard new people. So what I always think about is, and maybe this is a good second to think about it, is where are you today? Where are you going to be in a month, 2 months? Do you think you're going to grow a lot? Are you going to maybe want to do a pivot? You've got this great platform for B2B. You really like it. Your company understands it. Maybe you want to do retail down the road. So I I think if we think about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, longer than that is hard. I understand. If you see, if you can imagine, if you can think about outgrowing the engine or hitting a stopping point, it's time to buy, a little bigger when you start. You go up a size so that you can stay with the product longer. Scaling can get really expensive on the wrong platform. And so if you get something, yeah, it was great, it was easy to start, and now you find yourself 2, 3 years down the road, and we do see this with clients, and they have to replatform. The cost of the replatform, would have outstripped if they would have just started with the right tool set. I think we see something I see a lot is in business systems in general, ERP, in EDI, and e-commerce, people who try and fight the system they have a much harder time. You really want to pick a system that's close to how you do it, has the capabilities, maybe more, and not fight it. And so if you pick something that's not flexible enough, you might find yourself fighting the system for a long time until you hit a breaking point. So I really like to think about this. This slide is very important to me because I've seen it, with some of our longtime customers, and it's really frustrating when we get there. So another thing to consider in the more factors to compare bag. So this is probably a good one to talk about. Payment providers. right? Not every platform has the same support for all payment providers. And people get kind of surprised by this. Your company probably already has some payment provider. You may or may not like them. You may love them, but they might be doing your point of sale. They might be doing your ERP credit card processing, and then go to find out that the website doesn't have any support for it. So now we have to onboard a new one, or what do we have to switch? So one thing we ask and one thing we use to narrow down what platform's good for people is how do their payment needs fit in with the site they're choosing? Are they choosing something that's pretty straightforward? Again, retail, I ordered a t-shirt. That's all we need. Maybe we'll collect it once we ship the product out, or maybe we need to keep that credit card on file and pass it into the ERP. This is a new B2B customer, and we're going to invoice them and then charge them what we need to charge them. We might not be able to quote our shipping prices up front, for example, so we need to maybe charge them a little more and give them a refund. So when you get into the more complex credit card stuff, I find that it can be a deciding factor for clients, what to choose. And that's all without talking about the popular stuff. So stuff that retailers are using: Apple Pay, Amazon Pay, PayPal, Venmo, and I heard of one more and I can't think of it. So there's all those sorts of things. And does your platform help you deal with those payment gateways, or do they kind of leave you to the wolves? Do you have to deal with them all yourselves? So something to think about there. Also notably, some platforms have their own providers. Shopify has their own payment provider, Shop Pay. So you don't have to worry about it as much. They collect it and then cut you the check, right? So you don't have to deal with it too much, but then you're locked in. Just some stuff to think about. Payments always come up. Another thing that we see that comes up is shipping. So how are you shipping products? Again, if you're doing retail, you're good. You're in a really sweet spot. It's usually not too hard. Mostly for these platforms, we see good integrations for the major carriers, UPS, FedEx, USPS. But sometimes we see limitations. You need to split packages in certain ways, and it doesn't support it. Sometimes we see it on the backside, like on fulfillment. Do you know what package each product in an order is in, and are you able to tell the website that? We also see stuff like calculating shipping rates. It can be easy for basic packages, but even for retail where you have kind of complex or dimensional weights, where you're also giving the dimensions of the packages. One of our clients send stuff in big long rolls because they're just really long, tall, and rolled up, and they don't fit well into the standard box sizes. So quoting those rates has been a challenge for them. So something to think about is how are we handling that shipping quoting? If you're just doing it, a lot of people say they weren't doing any e-commerce today. If you think you're going to be able to do it exactly the same on the web as you do when a customer calls in and you go manually rate quote them, it can be hard. A lot of times we find people are just trying to get close and not perfect on the shipping rates. But when people are doing B2B or larger orders, or they're quoting LTL, it can be risky to not have it be accurate. So I think there's a lot to think about. Also something that I just thought about: Shopify, for example, can print your labels and generate them directly for you. So in some cases it's easier, like this is reverse shipping, but RMAs in Shopify, they can print off a label for you and have that process handled automatically, shipping stuff back to your warehouse. So a lot of stuff to think about. And how does that interact with your warehouse, right? If you're a webmaster and you're on this call, you may not talk to your warehouse that much. So what shipping systems are they using? Do they have a backend system they use, for pick, pack, and ship, and how they quote things? What are they capable of? Do you guys even have a FedEx truck that's coming every day? I don't know. So it's not just an e-commerce site. It kind of affects, kind of all parts of your business, especially your warehouse side of things. That's something to throw out there. I've got another one: sales tax. Everybody loves sales taxes, and they can get complex, can't they? We find now that people are largely relying on third-party providers to handle tax calculation. Shopify has a built-in tax engine that allows you to automatically collect the correct taxes for the customer's jurisdiction, right? So it's all based on where people ship, if you're doing retail. But then there's also compliance, filling out those reports and submitting to the appropriate state authorities where you have Where you have Nexus, where you don't, it can get quite complex. So we see a lot of people integrating with and outsourcing the tax software. So two popular ones, Avalara, that's very popular in the Sage channel. We do a lot of ERP work in Sage, so that's very popular with us. Another one is TaxJar, which is a competitor of Avalara. The pitch for both of these is basically don't worry about it. Let us handle calculating and remitting taxes for you. But the real question is like, if your company's already doing that, does that system work with the e-commerce platform you're going to use? Avalara has very good support across the systems, but in some cases you still have to configure and set it up. So are there hidden costs? Is it going to automate this for me? Is it going to actually save me time? Should I just handle it myself? All things to think about. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about integration. We're an SI. We do integrations. That's what we love. So consider this my mini pitch. Why does it matter, right? Are you gonna manage the e-commerce site by hand? It's a daunting task if you're taking any volume of orders, or you have to have manual processes like updating inventory. So we see people who don't have good integrations suffer a lot of labor costs. And so having a good integration to your ERP or maybe your PIM as well, if you have a product system that you're using to manage your products and have, more product data, integrating those to your e-commerce system is like a huge time saver. It eliminates the double entry or the copying manually. It eliminates those errors and it keeps stuff up to date. If you run lean, if you keep your inventory lean, having real-time inventory is a huge boon. Nothing is worse than a customer calling, ordering it, and you say, "Oh, sorry, that's back ordered," or "We don't have it." So I think ERP integration is kind of a key thing to always think about, or maybe we'll just say systems integration. And is it going to work with your ERP? There's sort of an established map market in this area. Someone's using NetSuite, they're using Magento. Dollars to donuts, they're using the Celigo, integration tool to move data around. So I think there's a common mistake that if I'm just starting out, maybe I don't need to do this, but I really think there's value in kind of ensuring that consistency and that it sort of just flows. So you're not having to, stay up at night worrying about how the data is moving around. One real life story from me on that is I had a really good product manager who managed our catalog and inventory. And I didn't know when I started at this company, we did fashion, that she spent, yeah, she spent 4 hours per day updating the inventory across our websites. It was mind blowing. Like our whole morning every day was getting inventory synced to the different sites we have. We had a bunch of different retail sites online, and she would go through, run extractions, get the Excel, massage the data, upload it one by one, fix data errors, and it was crazy. And we didn't discover until we ran into a busy period. I think we were coming up, I think it was like coming up through the fall and getting ready for our spring catalog that she was so backed up. And the amount of time it took to get the integration going was negligible, like nothing compared to the amount of time she was spending doing that by hand. And when we fixed that, suddenly we had time for like way more valuable projects for her to work on. Um, so that was just a real life win. So now we're into I said this was the grab bag. Now we're into the bottom of the bag. Um, Down to the last two letters in Scrabble. Um, so I'm gonna shout these out. So sales channels. Some of these platforms support channels or like marketplaces. Like you can pull orders from Amazon or Walmart into Shopify. Like that's very cool. That could be useful to you if you're selling on different stores or like pushing data out to like eBay automatically or Wayfair or Walmart. Um, Data ownership, maybe I'll say platform ownership too. Like is it your platform? Are you stuck with a vendor? Um, did someone custom build the site for you and you can't walk away? Do you know how to get your data out of it? Are you having to pay to export data? That's something to think about. Security, something no one wants to think about, but we hear it all the time. 10 million users were just hacked and all their social security numbers are available. You don't want that to be you. You don't want anyone to think about when they think about your company about that. So some platforms have historically been more secure and some less. Reliability. I said Black Friday before. That was another real story from my life. having the website go down on Black Friday. So are you working with a platform, or are you hosting in a way that's going to be reliable? Do you need it to be reliable? Maybe it's not a big deal. Um, Another one that's worth throwing out. So compliance, PCI compliance is pretty standard now. Everybody does it with credit cards, but then there's more stuff now. There's GDPR if you do anything in Europe. California has their own consumer protections. There is ADA, Americans with Disability Act standards about accessibility online. So these things can all come out of the blue, and nobody wants to be on the wrong side of compliance or laws. Um, Another one, support. I might say support and partnerships. Um, are there consultants who work in this area? Is there a good number of agencies or people that you can find that can help you? If you're using a niche product, it might be harder. If you're doing something popular, you're on the right bandwagon, and there's lots of options. One of the cool things about Shopify or BigCommerce or really any of these is there's a lot of vendors. Shopify doesn't build your site for you. They give you the platform, and then you go to the custom coach builder and they build your site out. And so picking one that has more competition in the space can be helpful in finding something that meets your needs or your costs. Last one, I think Sherry wanted me to put in marketing is, her gig, but it's very important that being able to pull the right data or have the right analytics, being able to install the right analytics plugins, these kind of reporting tools are really important when you're evaluating, how valuable is this site or how well is it doing. So those are a couple more. I think we could probably keep thinking of more, but I think that's probably enough. So we're gonna open it up to Q&A, I think. Yeah, I'm happy to answer, and I I particularly enjoy these conversations because we often get to guide customers. It's hard to know what you don't know, but um, so don't feel like anything's out of the blue. Um, I'm happy to answer all and any questions about e-commerce.
Calvin, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I'm a consultant. I'm TDT Consulting, just so you know.
Hmm.
I'm asking things in regards to the clients. I know that there's a client on site right now, or on the call right now, that I am thinking of them when I'm asking these questions. But they are using Sage 100, and the
Mm-hmm.
integration of this information, rather, coming in from one of the, Shopify or BigCommerce or whatever it might be. um, there is a link or a manner to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a tool that syncs data in and out of Sage 100. It pulls, like, we'll say really often, it's a very common thing we see, orders, right? An order comes into Shopify or BigCommerce. We have a tool that lives in the middle. These tools they're often called like iPaaS, like integration platforms. So we have one we built for Sage 100 that will then take that Shopify order, and what it does is in Sage 100, it puts in an SO sales order, and fills that information in. So yeah, we definitely have tools work with Sage 100.
Okay, but for, let's say, some larger companies that are looking for them to maybe go EDI instead, that would be a
Mm.
totally different situation, correct?
Yeah, I find we also do EDI work in Sage 100, and we find it's different, partially because the workflows are different. They're both AR focused, but in e-commerce, oftentimes, especially in retail, you might not have an established relationship with your clients. In EDI, we often see people will set up with maybe one, two, three, four of their top trading partners, their top customers. Um, Whereas I think with e-commerce, people are largely focused on the long tail of customers. But we also have an EDI solution for Sage 100.
Great. I just wanted to bring that into the picture of people listening that, may be looking at multiple things and how does it all integrate together.
Yeah, sure. And it's not, it's funny, sometimes we see people doing both. Um, if they're a distributor and maybe they're selling to stores, but also they're doing a kind of a side thing, a side retail site, they sell directly to customers. We do see that. Um, and the manner is different. With websites, people expect things to be real time and kind of happen right away. EDI, you might have a couple days to say, oh yeah, we got your message. And so they're from two different eras. EDI is still highly prevalent, but we do find that the workflows are slightly different.
And as far as the volume of when you need someone dedicated to be able to respond to the people who are ordering through, say, Shopify or BigCommerce or whichever platform seems to be the best set, having someone on staff as far as availability and problems and things like that, what do you see from a volume standpoint of what do you need on site?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what we try to do is embed the e-commerce into the existing company structure. So if you have a customer service team, um, training them on how to use the website or deal with basic problems. Hey, I don't know where my order is. And one of the nice things about doing an integration is for your customer service, they can pull that order right up in the ERP, right? They don't have to
Right.
go and learn a new tool. Um, Also, we find that some platforms are more geared towards what I'll call self-service. I mentioned before that Shopify, you can automatically create an RMA. Well, that just saved you a 10, 15-minute phone call for a product that showed up broken, right? And so when you think about as your volume grows, you know, trying to avoid growing your labor in a linear way. You want to be able to scale without having to add a new customer service person every time you get 5,000 more orders. Um, you will have to grow, but if you have good integrations and you have a platform that's flexible, you might not have to go through such a growth in your labor cost. Something to think about there, I don't know if anyone's returned anything to Kohl's. My wife ordered something on Amazon and they told us to drop it off at Kohl's, right? That's crazy. There's companies like Happy Returns and Kohl's is doing it too to help facilitate, right? Automated returns or easier collection of returns. So I think that's two RMA examples in one, but I think there are platforms that are more geared towards that self-service, easy to use, easy to search on the web and get set up. And I think that can be valuable, not in retail, but also in B2B. If you've got a long tail of small B2B customers, it can be arduous to have to take every call from them. So maybe they don't know your catalog, maybe they're a newer customer. Having them be able to go online, and I think I saw a survey that, new buyers prefer to buy online and kind of explore your catalog and see your offerings through like a B2B oriented site can be a good way to, approach things. We did a project and for a client last year and they sort of automated their customer onboarding. So we were able to kind of build out a process and flow that a new customer would sort of, send in their business information and it would flow into Sage as kind of a new AR customer. In this case, it was a Sage integration. They, had to do their background business check and check their credit and stuff. And then when it was all done, the customer got an email saying, "Oh, you've been approved. Here's your account. You can log in and start ordering." And so that saved them a tremendous amount of time, onboarding new customers. So I think it's good in B2B and retail without knowing more.
Right, specific to the actual customer that's implementing this. The other question I have is how is there a capability to restrict who can order on your B2B,
Yeah,
saying
and
that
so that
they are, they have an area that they can only sell in this particular area, not across, the world or the United States?
yes, most of the B2B oriented platforms have good ability to do restrictions and even sometimes prevent people from even being able to see your catalog. Or, oftentimes it's configurable where you can show the catalog off if someone's not logged in. They can peruse, but they can't see your prices. Or maybe you only want to send certain customers out to the web. Maybe your small customers or big customers or customers in one division. So I find those B2B platforms are pretty flexible on how you want to set things up.
There's some great questions. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions before we move on? All right. Well, let's I just have a couple of things, two things before we wrap up. I want to first let you know that we'd like to extend this special offer just to say thank you for taking the time to attend today. We do appreciate you being here. And so we'd like to offer this personalized strategy session, so a consultation with us, with our experts, to talk in depth about your particular needs, your situation, how your business works, the kinds of workflows you have, how you do things, so that we can help you with some personalized insights and give you a very tailored recommendation to the kind of platforms you might want to consider, or maybe we can even evaluate and determine which one is a clear winner for what you're looking to do. So we'd love for you to take advantage of that. You can use the QR code or that other contact information there on the screen in order to do so, to make that, book that meeting. So that's the first thing. And the second item is we want to let you know about a webinar, our next webinar coming up in June. I think many of you could find this valuable, especially if you're finding that you'd like to accelerate the growth of your business. We're bringing in Jim Sochi. He's a professional EOS implementer. EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. So this is kind of like a framework for managing business. It was introduced in the book that's shown there, Traction. You may have heard of it. It's really about helping leadership teams in small to medium-sized companies define a vision for the organization, get the right people into the right seats in the company, and build accountability and discipline across the org. So something a little different for us to offer, but we're excited about it. So if you're running into recurring issues in your business, or you feel like you have inconsistent execution, inconsistent results, or you just want to get everybody on the same page, and that's been difficult, I think you could get some really practical takeaways from this session. So if you're interested, use that QR code and register. We'd love to see you there. That'll be on June 6th. That one is a little earlier in the day at 11 a.m. Eastern. I think that's all we've got. So thank you again so much. I have put some contact information on the screen there. I hope that this webinar has given you some insights, some tools, some ability to learn how to evaluate these platforms. I want to say thank you very much to Calvin for delivering all that great information. I know that he's looking forward to talking to you more.
Absolutely.
And if you want to reach out, you can use that QR code, a lot of QR codes to book a meeting with Calvin on his calendar so that you can talk more. Also, thank you for Nick and the others from Kissinger that are here today to participate. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.